Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something that is, and I don't use this term lightly, an absolute game changer. We can finally, thankfully, toss out that generic, unhelpful advice to just think positive or try to worry less. I mean, we all know that stuff just doesn't work, right? Instead, we are unpacking a clinical, rigorously science-backed approach to curing those awful morning mental spirals. It takes exactly 5 minutes, and the research shows it can slash your overthinking by a staggering 80%. Let's get into it.
Look, let's be honest for a second. We've all been there. Have you ever woken up, opened your eyes, and instantly, literally before your feet even hit the floor, started spiraling about everything that could possibly go wrong today? Or maybe you're just stuck on a loop, agonizing over some incredibly awkward conversation you had like 3 years ago. It is just so exhausting, isn't it? Starting your day with a brain that feels like it's already running a marathon.
Well, if that sounds like you, get this. 73%. Nearly 3/4 of people are actively dealing with this exact same battle. You are absolutely not alone in this. It's a massive, widespread issue. But the really good news here? It is highly treatable once you actually understand the mechanics of what's happening inside your head.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. 1. The overthinking epidemic. 2. The morning brain advantage. 3. The 3-step ritual. 4. The science of 80%. And finally, 5. Timelines and common mistakes.
Section 1. The overthinking epidemic and the science of the spiral.
We need to start by completely debunking a massive myth right now. Overthinking, it's not just a quirky personality trait. It's not just having a lot on your mind. It is a highly specific, measurable neurological condition. Research led by Dr. Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan actually proves that this anxiety loop physically exists in the brain. When you overthink, you're driving this intense looping activity in your prefrontal cortex and your anterior insula, which are essentially the brain's self-referential and anxiety centers. So this isn't metaphorical. It is literally physically happening in your brain's circuitry. You overthink, you get anxious, the anxiety fuels even more overthinking, and bam, the loop locks you in.
And the ripple effects of this loop, they are devastating. Drawing from data in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology, we see that first, your mental health takes a huge hit. It's very strongly linked to depression and insomnia. Second, your productivity completely tanks. I mean, think about it. If you burn through all your mental energy at 7 a.m. worrying about hypothetical scenarios, your brain is totally exhausted before the workday even begins. And third, your relationships suffer. You become irritable, you start misinterpreting what people say, and this inner toxicity just starts radiating outward. Moving on to Section 2, the morning brain advantage, or capitalizing on the golden hour. So why must this specific ritual be done first thing in the morning to actually work? Well, when you first wake up, you're in what researchers at the Max Planck Institute call the golden hour for brain plasticity. Your cortisol levels are naturally high, which is actually a good thing. It's healthy and makes you alert. But crucially, your amygdala, your brain's threat and fear center, hasn't fully booted up yet. So your neural pathways are incredibly mutable right now. They're like soft clay ready to be rewired before that anxiety engine really revs up. And why exactly 5 minutes? I mean, why not 20, right? Well, scientists at the UMass Mindfulness Research Center found that 5 is the absolute neurological sweet spot. It is just long enough to create real, lasting neurological change, but short enough to avoid brain fatigue. If you go too long, your brain tires out. Too short, the neural rewiring just doesn't stick. 5 minutes is literally the magic number. Section 3, the 3-step ritual and rewiring your brain. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the practical breakdown of the solution. Here is the overarching structure of the 5-minute protocol, and it's beautifully simple. Step 1 is grounding for 2 minutes, Step 2 is thought labeling for 2 minutes, and Step 3 is intention setting for 1 minute. Boom, that's your 5 minutes. Let's break down the actual science behind each specific step, starting with grounding. Step 1 is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. Before you even think about touching your phone, you just sit and observe. You consciously look for 5 visual details around you. Touch 4 distinct textures, listen for 3 sounds, smell 2 scents, and feel 1 strong sensation, like drinking a glass of freezing cold water. Why does this work so well? Because it forces engagement from your somatosensory and auditory cortexes. Those are the parts of your brain that process physical touch and sound. Research published in Nature Neuroscience actually demonstrates that focusing your senses like this significantly drops amygdala activation.
While you're actively processing these real-time physical inputs, it is neurologically impossible for your brain to overthink. You are literally forcing your brain out of the hypothetical future and snapping it into the exact present. Step 2 is thought labeling for 2 minutes. This teaches a concept called cognitive defusion, which comes directly from acceptance and commitment therapy. Usually, when an anxious thought pops up, we fight it, right? But that just feeds it more energy. Instead, you're going to create distance. You don't say, I am worried. You say, I'm having the thought that I should be worried. You're observing the thought, you are not identifying with it. Studies in the cognitive therapy and research journals show that this precise technique of distancing yourself from the thought reduces anxiety by a whopping 45%. You just notice it, give it a label, and let it pass on by. Finally, step 3. Intention setting for the last minute. But listen, we are completely throwing out generic positive thinking, like, I'm going to be positive today. We all know that doesn't hold up. Instead, we use an implementation intention. You create a strict if-then statement. For example, if I catch myself overthinking about my boss today, then I will do 30 seconds of grounding. Research out of Stanford and UC Irvine proves that using this specific pre-decision framework increases your ability to complete a goal by a massive 91%. You are pre-programming your brain's response so it doesn't have to panic and scramble when the trigger actually happens. All right, section 4, the science of 80%, also known as the receipts. Now, if you're feeling a little skeptical about that 80% reduction claim, I get it. But let's look at the hard, institutional proof here. And this brilliantly illustrates just how undeniable the weight of this evidence is. The Whitehall 2 cohort study, which looked at 10,000 people, found that morning grounding routines reduce rumination by 63 to 78%. A 2022 meta-analysis in the APA journal showed a 70 to 85% symptom improvement in just 2 to 4 weeks using these exact combined techniques. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy studies confirm that doing this in the morning is 80% effective, which is nearly double the effectiveness of trying to do it in the evening. And Johns Hopkins brain imaging shows physically reduced amygdala reactivity within 30 days. So that 80%, it's not just marketing fluff, it's a clinical average from the absolute highest levels of scientific research.
Finally, section 5, timelines and common mistakes, or setting realistic expectations.
Let's walk through the psychological roadmap so you know exactly what to expect, because rewiring your brain takes a little patience. In week 1, let's be real, you aren't going to be completely cured, but what you will notice are shorter anxiety windows. A panic spiral that used to ruin your whole hour might only last 20 minutes. Those are huge small wins. By weeks 2 and 3, yeah, you'll still catch yourself starting a spiral, but your recovery time will be so much faster. You're going to bounce back quicker. And week 4 and beyond, that is where the magic happens. This is when those new neural pathways literally physically form and cement the habit. This is where you actually experience that 70 to 80% drop in intensity and frequency. However, that timeline only works if you avoid the common pitfalls. Please, whatever you do, do not make these mistakes. First, do not try to forcefully suppress your overthinking. Remember, acceptance and diffusion are key. Suppression just causes your brain to resist harder. Second, absolutely no phone distractions during these 5 minutes. Your brain needs unbroken, dedicated focus to rewire itself. Third, don't expect instant day 1 miracles. And finally, do not ignore the basics. If your sleep, your exercise, and your nutrition are a total mess, a 5-minute ritual simply cannot outwork a broken foundation. Consistency is the absolute, non-negotiable key to making this neurological change permanent. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. You now have the blueprint. You've seen the hard science, you understand the neurological mechanisms, and you have the exact 3-step protocol. The power to break the anxiety loop is entirely in your hands right now. Tomorrow morning, will you set your alarm just 5 minutes earlier? Will you trade just 5 minutes to take your brain back and secure your peace of mind? I highly, highly encourage you to apply what we covered in this explainer, give it a shot, and experience this rewiring for yourself. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive, and keep learning.